Hi, I'm Kat and today I have for you a word in Romanian, a true crime case, and I'll also be doing my makeup. So let's start with the word in Romanian. Mic dejun. Mic dejun. Mic dejun. Mic dejun. Well done guys, you just said breakfast. This case was requested by Cindy, one of my viewers on this channel, but I'll be honest with you, it took me a very long time to put this together because it's just horrific. I kept on reading about this case, but I couldn't get myself to talk about it. However, as hard as it is to hear or read or even listen to, baby Brianna deserves her story to be told. Baby Brianna, since the moment that she was born, she had no idea what love really is. Those who should have loved her, protect her and nourish her, instead showed her how evil a human being can be. For 153 days of her short life, she suffered horrific abuse at the hands of those who should have loved her the most. As soon as this baby was born, she wasn't shown any ounce of love and she sadly died not knowing what love feels like. So let's just get into everything that happened. Brianna Mariah Lopez, better known as Baby Brianna, was prematurely born to Stephanie Lopez and Andrew Walters on February 14, 2002, a day which was supposed to be filled only with love, but this was not the case. I'm going to refer to Andrew as Andy since he's referenced in a lot of articles as Andy. I wish I would be able to tell you all the great things about baby Brianna and all the loving things people had to say about her, but sadly I can't do that. There's just nothing. No one seemed to care about baby Brianna enough to even notice what an amazing baby she was. I can only assume she would have been excited to learn her new surroundings. She would have loved to enjoy cuddles with her mom, to do everything together, but sadly, this wasn't baby Brianna's life. Her very short life was filled with misery and darkness. Baby Brianna wouldn't live long enough for her mother to see her crawling. She wouldn't live long enough for her mother to hear her say the words mama. Baby Brianna wouldn't live past 5 months thanks to her mother, father and uncle. Stephanie Lopez later said that she had a special bond with Brianna because of her difficult premature birth. I'm gonna have to do my eyebrows off camera, sorry guys. Stephanie Lopez later said that she had a special bond with Brianna because of her difficult premature birth. I don't know how she can define that as a special bond because even the title mother is not deserved at all whatsoever. As soon as baby Brianna entered the trailer owned by her parents, her life changed forever. She moved into the home with her mother, father and uncle Stephen Lopez, her mother's twin brother, in the double-wide trailer in the 5200 block of Comanche Trail in Las Cruces, New Mexico. The mobile home was a 3-bedroom home shared by them along with Patricia Walters, Andrew's mother, and baby Brianna's grandmother, as well as another uncle and 2 other children. So we had in this trailer 6 adults and 3 children living together. The trailer was actually owned by Patricia Walters, Andrew's mother. Andrew shared 1 bedroom with Stephanie Lopez, baby Brianna, her 18-month-old brother and Stephen Lopez. Andrew Walters' brother Robert Walters and his mother's partner also lived in the mobile home. Almost immediately after getting home from the hospital, her mother, her father and her uncle began abusing baby Brianna. Stephanie, her mom, would bite Brianna, punch her and slap her if she cried. Andy and his brother Stephen inflicted most of the abuse on Brianna as Stephanie sat back and watched. They kicked, punched, threw, pinched and even the baby when she was only weeks old. They believed it was funny when Brianna cried in agony after the abuse and they hurt her even more. They stuffed clothing in her mouth to muffle the sounds. Brianna survived horrific for 153 days before her life came to a tragic end at the hands of those who should have loved her the most. On July 18, 2002, Andy went to buy beer. He came back home and all three of them drank alcohol. Stephanie claims she drank a few beers and went to bed in the same room as Brianna, Andy and Stephen were in, but she claims to never have heard a thing going on around her. And quite honestly, I don't think I buy that. No way that she couldn't hear anything, especially because she was in the same room as everybody else. Andy and Stephen decided to play a game of toss Brianna into the air, throwing her with enough force that she actually hit the ceiling. Then they let her fall to the ground and they even watched. And this happened repeatedly. Brianna screamed in agony, but Stephanie claimed that she never heard a sound. As usual, the men believed it was funny. They were amused by hurting this defenseless baby. And I would really love to know that someone does this to them in prison, and I would really love to know if they would be laughing now when this is done to them. According to Stephanie, Andrew, the dad, he got off work and he went home to play video games. He played video games and drank beer with other family members until around 12:30 a.m. when he went to bed. He stated that he and Stephanie woke up around 7 a.m. and that baby Brianna was unresponsive, prompting them to call 911. Stephanie Lopez stated that she drank a few beers and then she went to bed at 10 p.m. When she woke up the following morning, she noticed that baby Brianna was unresponsive, and that's when she decided to call 911. However, after more questioning, Andrew started to crack in his interrogation and he revealed the whole truth. Andrew admitted to biting his 5-month-old daughter and was able to identify the bite marks that he made. He stated that he was playing a little too rough with Brianna. He mentioned that him and baby Brianna's uncle, Stephen Lopez, were throwing her up in the air. They admitted throwing her up so high in the air that she actually hit her head on the ceiling. They then allowed baby Brianna to fall to the floor multiple times after tossing her in the air. The uncle, Stephen Lopez, admitted to drinking several beers that night. He stated he didn't remember starting any sexual activity with his niece, but he stopped himself from committing a sex act because he knew it was wrong. It kind of doesn't make sense though, does it? Because how can he say he doesn't remember starting sexual activity, but then he remembers stopping himself from committing a sex act because he knew it was wrong? So if he didn't remember, how did he know to stop himself, right? Around 7:15 a.m. on July 19th, 2002, Stephanie woke up to the sounds of Brianna crying. She noticed bruises on her body and asked Andrew and Stephen what happened. They told her that they were a little too rough when playing with her the previous night. Stephanie didn't see anything wrong with that explanation, and she just carried on with her day, ignoring Brianna's cries for help. Considering the extent of the injuries, visible large injuries that Brianna had, how could Stephanie not see something wrong? I guess that, she just didn't care enough to see something wrong. Later in the day, Andrew, the father, sodomized Brianna with his finger during a diaper change. But this wasn't something new. He regularly sodomized baby Brianna with various foreign objects. A few hours later, finally, Stephanie decided to call 911 for help. By this point, Brianna was in obvious distress for almost 24 hours. Stephanie told the operator that Brianna fell from a high chair and she wasn't breathing. She performed CPR until paramedics arrived. Paramedics rushed baby Brianna to the hospital where they were unsuccessful at resuscitating her and where she was pronounced dead at 11:10 a.m. at Memorial Medical Center. She was 5 months, 5 days old. Doctors were horrified by what they saw when Brianna arrived at the hospital. She was covered head to toe in bruises. She suffered fresh and old injuries, including bleeding on her brain, broken ribs, both broken legs, both broken arms, lacerations to her fingers, lacerations to her vagina and anus, and many other injuries. She had been bruised every single day of her life after leaving the hospital 5 months earlier. It's just unimaginable the extensive amount of pain that baby Brianna went through. It would be horrific for an adult to go through something like this. You have broken arms, broken legs, broken ribs. Then just imagine a baby going through this. Detective Lionel Wright was informed that the baby was at Memorial Medical Center and was in bad condition. He responded to the location and found medical staff working on baby Brianna, and they had determined that she was deceased. At that point, Lionel instructed the deputies assisting him to separate Brianna's mother, her father, Andy Walters, and her uncle, Stephen Lopez, who were all at the hospital. Lionel then photographed Brianna along with several other officers. He saw bruises throughout her body in different stages of healing, as well as bite marks. He said that the injuries were just horrific. Once Lionel completed the photographs, he interviewed Andy Walters and Stephen Lopez, describing their demeanor as deceptive. Andy's answers and emotions did not fit what had happened to Brianna. He didn't seem distressed and was not asking if Brianna was okay. During questioning at the sheriff's office, Andy Walters told detectives that he woke up around 10 a.m. on 19th of July 2002 and he discovered that baby Brianna wasn't breathing. Andy Walters admitted during questioning that on July 18 he had been drinking beer with Stephanie and Stephen Lopez, and that he and Stephen Lopez were playing a little rough with Brianna. During his interview, Stephen Lopez also admitted he had thrown Brianna. Stephen Lopez initially denied sexually assaulting his niece, but he later, during questioning, said, "I can't remember, I don't remember." Stephanie Lopez, meanwhile, told detectives that Andy Walters, the baby's father, had thrown baby Brianna several days before the baby's death, but she attributed some of Brianna's bruises to her rolling off her bed and the way that she slept. She also said her 18-month-old son was responsible for biting Brianna. And I find this truly, really disgusting. A mother to defend her partner and instead blame a child, an 18-month-old child, for causing the bites is just completely disgusting. Baby Brianna's second uncle, Robert Walters, also gave a taped statement to police on the day of baby Brianna's death. He was asked about baby Brianna being thrown up in the air, and he said that his mother, baby Brianna's grandmother, had seen Andrew throw baby Brianna in the air in the past, and the grandmother told him, "If you don't cut that shit out, I'm going to take Brianna away from you." The second uncle said that this happened a couple of days before baby Brianna's death. At another point in the interview, he told police that he had seen Andrew and Stephen throw baby Brianna in the air. Yet, both of these adults did absolutely nothing to defend baby Brianna, and they did absolutely nothing to save her or to even help her. No, they just watched and they expected what exactly? That by some miracle a 5-month-old baby would take it and just grow up healthy and happy? Or what exactly did they expect? At what point did they decide that they shouldn't do anything to protect baby Brianna? Or were they just ignorant from the moment baby Brianna came home from the hospital? I am really struggling to understand here and to actually give myself an answer that I'm looking for, right? Once the autopsy was made public, the residents of Las Cruces, New Mexico understood that this wasn't just a horrible accident to a local family. This was actually intentional. The autopsy revealed that baby Brianna suffered more physical beatings than any human should have to experience in their lifetime. And baby Brianna, let's not forget that she was only 5 months old. It was announced and ruled that baby Brianna died from cranial cerebral injuries. She had visible bruising and scabbing on her forehead and on her head. Along with the scabbing and bruising, she also had 2 skull fractures that were several days old. She had signs of human bite marks, not just a few human bite marks, multiple, 15 human bite marks all over her body. She had 2 rib fractures that were 2 weeks old. She was violently shaken at least twice in her lifetime due to her optical nerves being filled with old and new blood. She suffered bucket handle fractures caused by her legs and arms being violently forced, yanked or pulled in different directions and out of the socket. Along with these fractures and head injuries, baby Brianna also had injuries consistent with sexual assault. After the findings of her autopsy, baby Brianna's death was ruled a homicide. Police searched the home, but they didn't find one single toy or a single photo of Brianna smiling. No evidence of Brianna ever feeling love or happiness during her short life. Grandparents and other relatives knew that all 3 of them was Brianna, but they decided to just ignore the abuse, even knowing that her own father and her own uncle raped her. They saw the bruises on baby Brianna's body, but they stayed silent. Brianna died because her tiny body couldn't handle any more abuse. Amy Orlando, Deputy Secretary for the Department of Public Safety, told Las Cruces Sun News, quote, "When we were getting the briefings, we heard what the baby looked like, that there wasn't a part of her body that was not bruised. This was just pure hatred and torture that went on all night, and then, as we learned later, had been most of her life. She had never been free of injury, and she had never lived a life free of pain." End of quote. Andy and Stephen admitted to throwing baby Brianna, but they denied sexually abusing her, with Andrew telling detectives they were not going to find any semen. He suggested that he penetrated baby Brianna while changing a dirty diaper. Sadly, laws in place at the time of baby Brianna's death allow a maximum sentence of only 18 years behind bars for the charge of intentional child abuse resulting in death. The trial for all of these 3 scumbags was held in Albuquerque, New Mexico, approximately 3 hours north of Las Cruces, New Mexico. They were charged and convicted of baby Brianna's death. Experts testified during trial that baby Brianna's injuries included more than a dozen bite marks and bruises, mostly on her head and face, ranging in color from deep purple to yellow. The baby also had fractured ribs and skull, and her genitals were injured. A state crime analyst testified that a blood spot found on underwear belonging to Brianna's father, 22-year-old Andy Walters, matched Brianna's DNA. District Attorney Susana Martinez was overcome by the verdict. Defense Attorney Stephen Ryan was hoping for an appeal to clear the name of Stephanie Lopez, the child's mother, so-called mother. Quote, "If she can be tried just by herself, she will be acquitted," Ryan said. "She loved her baby. She didn't hurt her baby." End of quote. Right. She didn't hurt her baby. Then how do you explain her biting the baby, pinching the baby, watching the baby suffer abuse? But no, she would have been acquitted because no, she didn't hurt the baby. No, not at all. I know that, lawyers, they really do have a job to do, but what he said, I just found it really disgusting. The judge listened to emotional pleas from Stephanie Lopez, Patricia Walters, and Rosario Lopez, Stephanie and Steven's mother. Quote, "I blame myself till the day I die. It will haunt me," Stephanie Lopez said. "I'm at fault for not seeing what Andy Walters was capable of." She said she should have taken her children and left Andy Walters. Really, Stephanie, you didn't see what he was capable of? Yes, you did. In fact, you not only participated in the abuse, but also stood and watched, and when baby Brianna needed your help, you didn't think anything wrong was happening. And I truly hope that this will haunt you forever, even after that. And if she said that she should have taken her children and leave him, why didn't she? Why didn't you, Stephanie? Jurors were shown images from the autopsy of Brianna Lopez in the trial. All 5 defendants even avoided looking at the autopsy photos that were projected on the wall in front of them. Only Steven Lopez looked occasionally. He often looked at his twin sister, Stephanie Lopez, who covered her face or wiped away tears. Poor Stephanie. Brianna's father, Andy Walters, kept his hands on his head and he just looked down. District Attorney Susana Martinez reviewed the photos with Rebecca Arvine, a doctor at the office of the medical investigator who supervised Brianna's autopsy the day after her death. The first photos showed cuts to Brianna's toe and finger. They progressed to more serious injuries that included numerous bruises in various colors and sizes throughout baby Brianna's body. There were photos of bite marks on her thighs, back, buttocks, arms, chest, and face. The bite marks covered a portion of her left cheek, and several appeared to be on top of other bites. Some of the bites were darker in color than others. A frontal photo of Brianna's head and forehead showed a large bruised area of deep reddish purple to yellow. The whole 1/3 of the baby's head was covered in abrasions. There were gasps from the audience when Susana Martinez displayed a photo of Brianna's brain. Rebecca pointed out yellow and red fluid that was old and new blood in the brain, consistent with shaken baby syndrome. She said that the yellow was old blood and the red was a recent injury. Brianna also had 2 rib fractures, a fractured arm, and fractures to her legs. The injuries were not recent because they had formed a callus. Susana Martinez used a diagram, not photos, to show injuries to Brianna's vagina and anus. These were highly suspicious for sexual assault. Brianna also had skull fractures and trauma to her head. It happened many weeks before based on the optic nerve and bleeding in the brain. One witness testified that the baby's father would play catch with the baby. Laura Mae Williams, a deputy medical investigator, said she interviewed the family members who lived with Brianna, including her father, Andy Walters. He said he had been playing a toss-catch game with Brianna. She hit her head on the ceiling and he dropped her once. Laura also questioned Andy about the bite marks. He said he believed the bite marks were from his son because his son often saw him bite Brianna, but Andy didn't leave marks, according to him. Amy Orlando, the deputy secretary, said she remembers well one portion of the trial, and that was Susana's closing argument, in which she pointed out every one of Brianna's injuries. The look on the jurors' faces and the tears that were coming down their eyes were unforgettable, she said. The jury of 7 men and 5 women deliberated for around 9 hours when at 6:45 p.m. they told the judge they had a verdict. The courtroom became emotional as District Judge Stephen Bridgeford read the charges aloud, with one guilty verdict after another. Finally, after composing herself, District Attorney Susana Martinez met with reporters and she praised the jury. Quote, to find that her father and mother responsible for killing her, to find that grandmother and grandfather stood by while her was led to her death. Day after day, we are extremely pleased for the sake of Brianna that justice has come her way, she said. 22-year-old Andrew Walters, baby Brianna's father, was charged with intentional child abuse resulting in death or great bodily harm, conspiracy to commit intentional child abuse resulting in death or great bodily harm, criminal sexual penetration of a child under 13 in the first degree, intentional child abuse not resulting in death or great bodily harm, and negligently permitting child abuse. He was sentenced to 57 years in prison. 20-year-old Stephen Lopez, baby Brianna's uncle, was charged and convicted with intentional child abuse resulting in death or great bodily harm, conspiracy to commit intentional child abuse resulting in death or great bodily harm, and criminal sexual penetration of a child under 13 in the first degree. Stephen Lopez was sentenced to 51 years in prison. 20-year-old Stephanie Lopez, baby Brianna's so-called mother, was charged with negligently permitting child abuse resulting in death or great bodily harm and was sentenced to 27 years in prison. She was found not guilty of intentional child abuse as jurors decided that she did not inflict abuse but allowed the abuse. It was the jury's only not guilty verdict. Brianna's paternal grandmother, 43-year-old Patricia Walters, and uncle, 23-year-old Robert Walters, were convicted of failure to report child abuse. They were convicted to 60 days in prison, but according to other reports, they only served 30 days in prison. If one of them would have spoken up, baby Brianna's life could have been saved. In September 2016, Stephanie Lopez was granted early release by the Department of Corrections.
The mother of baby Brianna, Stephanie Lopez, was released from prison today after serving 13 years of her 27-year sentence. Brianna, who was just 5.5 months old when she was murdered in 2002, became the catalyst for change in New Mexico child abuse laws. Her mother, who was convicted of negligent child abuse resulting in death for doing nothing to stop the abuse and for child abuse biting her child, was allowed to earn good time and only serve 50% of her sentence because her crimes were not considered serious violent offenses at the time. Today, Lopez walked out of the women's prison in Grants. A corrections spokesperson says she will be moving out of state, where she will serve 2 years supervised parole. Governor Susana Martinez, who prosecuted the case as district attorney back in 2003, reacted today to Lopez's release.
Someone she should rely on the most wasn't there for her and was killed by other men who her and raped her. And her mom was nowhere to be found. She should not be walking the streets of this state or anywhere else.
Baby Brianna's case did spark a change, lengthening sentences for many types of child abuse, making intentional child abuse resulting in death a mandatory life sentence. Now, Brianna's dad, Andy Walters, is serving a 63-year sentence in another state. Stephanie's twin brother, Stephen, is serving a 57-year sentence.
She was eligible for good time and received credit for the 493 days she served while awaiting trial. Immediately after her release, Stephanie began her parole in Texas. Susana Martinez, the prosecutor who charged Stephanie Lopez, objected to her release. The news of her parole eligibility met with worldwide outrage, and a petition was created to revoke her eligibility for parole. The petition garnered over 60,000 signatures and also media coverage. However, due to the laws that were in place at the time of Stephanie's conviction, she was released from prison on 21st of September 2016. Amy Orlando, the Deputy Secretary for the Department of Public Safety, talked to the Las Cruces Sun News about the sadness surrounding the trial. Quote, "You had a courtroom that was completely backing those defendants. The reality was that she was still alone. They had killed her, they had put a cage over her gravesite so people couldn't go and put balloons or flowers, so they had isolated her in death, and now she was alone through the trial." It just broke your heart. To hear guilty across the board, you just finally realized that baby Brianna could be free and justice was served and the killers were convicted." End of quote. In 2006, the defendants won an appeal to overturn the convictions. A year later, however, the Supreme Court reinstated the sentences. Stephanie got in trouble in prison about every year from 2005 to 2016. Violations included fighting, drug possession, and sexual misconduct for showering with another inmate. She also earned back some of the good time by taking job skills classes. Records show that she was transferred to Texas under an interstate compact agreement to serve 2 years of parole. State Senator Mary Jane Garcia said that 18 years for the life of a child was absurd. Andrew Walters is expected to be released in December 2025, and Stephen Lopez is expected to be released in December 2022. At the end of this year, just in a few months. Maria Perez spent time with Stephanie Lopez in prison. Stephanie Lopez was sentenced around the same time as Maria Perez was sentenced. Both women were sent to the New Mexico Women Correctional Facility in Grants. Maria was ordered to serve 5 years in prison for a drug conviction. Maria Perez, who now lives in Georgia, talked to Action 7 News about Stephanie's demeanor behind bars. She said that Stephanie was a quiet character who rarely had trouble with anyone. "I never felt any kind of problems with Stephanie." Maria said that she became a clerk to the prison's chaplain. Stephanie would come to visit her frequently. Stephanie occasionally requested prayer, according to Maria. "I told her that God still loves her no matter what and that repentance is always available. My wish for her is that she has found something in her spirit that would lead her to be the best she can be and most of all find repentance." Maria Perez added. She also said that Stephanie was well liked and rarely had any issues with other inmates. Everyone seemed cool with her. She had plenty of friends in there. Brianna Lopez inspired the Baby Brianna bill, which instituted a mandatory 30-year sentence for convicts of child abuse resulting in death. The sentence only applies in cases where the child is younger than 13 years old. Susana Martinez told Las Cruces Sun News that the law should encompass children below 18 years old. Quote, "I'm fighting for it again to include all children," Susana said. "Children are anyone under 18, not just children under the age of 13. Lyndall Wright, the chief detective assigned to Brianna's case, supports the move to have the law broadened to include all children. He said, quote, "Brianna's case did expedite the process of changing the sentencing process, and it will be impacting on all child abuse cases. I hope that the communities not forget Brianna or Victoria, and that we as New Mexico move forward and continue in preventing and being proactive in child abuse." End of quote. It took a lot of hard work and effort, but laws in New Mexico changed for the better. In 2005, Senate Bill 166, also called the Baby Brianna Bill, was signed into effect by Governor Bill Richardson, making child abuse that results in death a first-degree felony in New Mexico with a mandatory minimum sentence of 30 years. None of Brianna's family members came forward to claim Brianna's body. They refused to pay for her burial or even a casket. Infuriated by the death and everything else that followed, the community came together and claimed the body of baby Brianna and paid for a funeral, a casket, and a proper burial for the baby. The community left flowers, balloons, and toys at the memorial site for baby Brianna. She never had these things during her short life. The community wanted baby Brianna to know she was loved, even though she sadly made it into the hands of evil monsters. Dozens of people in the community cried over baby Brianna's fate. Brianna's family was unhappy with the outpouring of love and attention the baby Brianna received after her death. The family didn't approve of the memorial full of flowers and toys. So They locked her up in a cage over her grave to keep anyone from leaving tributes to Brianna, to shield the community who loved her so much out. The cage is filled with trash and debris, and it's never cared for. Inside the cage there is a cherub with a finger raised to her lips. Some believe that this is actually a message that no one should talk about what happened to baby Brianna. The community vows to not let that happen.
The way she was beaten and killed shocked the community. Now, supporters of baby Brianna Lopez are doing whatever they can to make her place of resting more peaceful than the way she lived and died. News Channel 9's Monique Griego has more on what's new at Brianna's controversial gravesite.
Inside, there's no headstone, just a tiny wooden cross marked by the name of baby Brianna Lopez and the dates of her short life. Outside, the gravesite is surrounded by a black mesh cage.
When I first came here and I saw it, it took my breath away.
Heather McCullough is one of thousands of supporters who dedicated themselves to Brianna's cause after learning of her tragic death.
Something like that had never happened in this community, so horrendous.
Brianna's gravesite attracted a lot of visitors from the public, so her family put up this cage.
I can understand them not wanting people to come and bother her, but I don't feel that it's bothersome to come here and, place flowers, teddy bears.
Well, the cage was put here to keep people out. As you can see, that's really not what's happening.
It's got some new Christmas ornaments.
Visitors have pulled up the mesh from the edges so they can put in stuffed animals and other mementos.
And people still do it regardless of the cage. The cage actually brings even more awareness.
Hundreds of thousands of people from around the world have petitioned to have the cage removed and a headstone put up. McCullough is part of the Remember Me Foundation, which raises money for memorials for victims of child abuse. The organization had this bench made for Brianna, but getting it put in wasn't easy.
The family didn't want anything here, and so the cemetery was backing their wishes.
After months of work and help from the district attorney's office, the bench was finally put in. The plaques were added on this week. McCullough says it's at least one step towards giving Brianna the resting place she deserves.
It's definitely a memorial to give her a name finally.
Brianna's family says they keep the cage on her grave because they didn't want anyone disturbing it.
People still visit and leave flowers and have built another marker as well. On the outside, the community placed the same tributes to the baby as they would have on her grave. Because of the law and the cage not being legally able to be removed, there was a memorial bench built next to the grave where people still gather and leave tributes to baby Brianna. When asked why they put a cage over Brianna's gravesite, the family had very little to say. They were asked and they said they just wanted to be left alone and they wanted Brianna to be left alone. Brianna's story has been told dozens of times and is still being told on websites and online memorials, including Brianna Lopez Last Memories and Facebook memorials such as In Loving Memory of Baby Brianna. On 14th of February 2022, on what would have been baby Brianna's 20th birthday, the story of her very short life is reaching new audiences. Over the last year, the story of her horrific death has been the centerpiece of dozens of TikTok videos. Videos recollecting the gruesome details in the baby Brianna case, utilizing mugshots and pictures of baby Brianna's body, have garnered hundreds of thousands of views. Baby Brianna's story lives on 2 decades after she died amid the thousands of true crime stories told on the internet. To give you an idea of how bad baby Brianna's abuse was and how unloved baby Brianna was, there was absolutely no photo found of her in that trailer. So detectives who investigated the case took it upon themselves to take a photo of baby Brianna so she can be remembered. Detectives, social workers and prosecutors who worked on baby Brianna's case will also remember the child who never had a chance. Officer Lyndall Wright has seen a lot during his career, but Brianna's case will haunt him for life. He said, quote, "You're afraid that the emotion will take over." Before they started the autopsy and her little face was lying on a white sheet, I thought she looks asleep, so I just took the picture. The picture was photoshopped to edit out all the marks, bruises and scars that baby Brianna had. It's the Brianna the community likes to remember. There's a photograph of her to carry on of her little life, Lyndall Wright said. "Brianna is never far from the detective. It drives me to work harder to prevent, to be a voice for every child of abuse," Wright said. "That's what it does." Susana Martinez, the district attorney, said, "I cried my eyes out. It will stay with me for the rest of my life. It tests you to the point you're not sure you can speak. It's a reminder, of course, of why we do what we do," Susana Martinez said. "If you forget, you'll either become calloused or you'll become jello. You can't do this job well unless you are in the middle, and that's just a good reminder why we do it." The picture hangs on the wall next to Susana Martinez's desk, who was the district attorney in the trial. The Baby Brianna Foundation was founded in memory of her, and it works to support children and mothers who are victims of violence. Orlando Antonio Carrillo Jimenez, the founder of the Baby Brianna Foundation, told KFOX 14 he's still shocked by what happened in Las Cruces. "For it to happen so close to home, we were all devastated," Carrillo Jimenez said. He said he wanted to focus on baby Brianna. Quote, "We are not going to let her go out like that. We are going to remember what she was like in this picture. A beautiful, peaceful baby," end of quote.
Happy birthday to you. Love you, mija.
Brianna Lopez didn't live long enough to see her own 14th birthday party.
She couldn't live it on her own. She wasn't allowed to. But we live her life for her with all these kids that you see running around here.
Her tragic death, one that sent 3 family members to prison, still sickens many in Las Cruces.
They end up killing them.
People that say time heals all wounds have never been really affected by something of this magnitude.
Organizers are very pleased with this year's turnout for her 14th birthday on the 14th of February, but they expect this to be even bigger next year for a quinceañera.
Brianna's mother could be free by then. She's up for parole later this year, though people here say that's not their focus.
It's not our place to judge anybody, and that's not what either foundation is about. We're not here to judge, we're here to love.
The Baby Brianna Foundation is working to help other abuse victims.
It's our moral obligation as a community, as private citizens, to love these children as our own because they are God's children first. And it is not just a responsibility of CYFD and the police to protect God's children.
And hope they don't have to throw more parties.
Everything's gonna be okay, sweetie.
For kids who can't be there to enjoy them. In Las Cruces, Robert Richardson, KOAT Action 7.
The foundation celebrates baby Brianna's birthday every year and maintains her gravesite. Orlando Antonio considers himself Brianna's godparent and said he has found a way to forgive Stephanie Lopez, but he told K414 he doesn't believe the time she served was enough. Quote, "It's not justice, but what would be justice?" he said. "The justice is that we are going to keep these memories alive. That's justice." He said he won't let baby Brianna be forgotten. Brianna's death on July 19, 2002 is believed to be one of the worst cases of child abuse in New Mexico. And this, guys, is the heartbreaking story of baby Brianna. And I'm just going to say that I am completely disgusted with all those people who stood by and allowed baby Brianna to die. In my eyes, they are just as guilty as those 3 monsters that killed her. I really hope that they will never be able to live with themselves, and I really hope that they will forever have a constant reminder of what happened to baby Brianna because of all of them. I'm not a religious person myself, but from my point of view, I don't think they deserve forgiveness, and without offending any religious people out there, I surely hope that God will never forgive them and they'll never be able to find peace. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video and hear baby Brianna's story. I know that it's been difficult and it's been heartbreaking, but I really truly think that baby Brianna's story needs to be heard, as hard as it is to hear it. Please, like usual, let me know what do you guys think in the comment section down below. And also, if you are interested in any of the products that I use for my today's makeup, all of the products will be linked in the description down below. For now, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!